Assalamualaikum and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the episode of Breakfast at UMHealth this morning. This is a live event, live webinar series organized by the Faculty of Medicine. I'm Prof. Dr. Naguib bin Salleh from Department of Physiology, Faculty of Medicine. So this morning, we have two speakers. The first is Dr. Maziah from Department of Physiology, and second is Associate Prof. Dr. Lee Yu Kong from Department of Primary Care Medicine. So to start with today, we have Dr. Maziah she is a medical lecturer at the Department of Physiology with 10 years of experience in teaching and research. Her main research interest is in exergaming, which is a kind of a rehab for the spinal injury mainly. And today she will be presenting on her topic, which is virtual reality esport exergaming on the Lunar base. So without any delay, I would pass to you, Dr. Maziah, to start your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Naguib. So I'm Dr. Maziah. I'll be presenting on my topic for today, which is quite an unusual topic for medicine days. It will be on virtual reality esports exergaming on the Lunar base. All right. So virtual reality esports exergaming on the Lunar base. So as we all know, the moon mission, which is called the Artemis program, is where we want to send back humans into the moon. And this time it will be for either a permanent or for a very long period of time. So the mission program for the moon habitation, which is the Artemis program, requires about 2 to 3 days of flight from the Earth, and our expected stay duration is around 1 to 100 weeks. So the main reason is because we want to create the moon as a hub for indoor facilities with underground tunneling transport network and also a communication network between the supposed Earth and also the in-between Mars transportation. So the moon orbit is around 6 to 19 days. So that's the expected flight that we can send our space rockets from the Earth. We have a return flight 9 to 19 days. So that is the actual usual time window that we can send our rockets towards the moon. So as we all know, there is a substantial amount of effects of space that can have on the human. So we have the distance from Earth, the altered gravity, the radiation exposure, higher carbon dioxide and sleep circadian disruption, high workload, isolation, and confinement. So all this requires us to actually come up with a solution like artificial gravity, psychological support, virtual reality for physical activities and engagement, augmented feedback, and also sleep hygiene. So as we all know, the cosmic rays are one of the most important thing that we need to consider when we send humans out of the Earth's magnetosphere. So we have cosmic rays, which is a high dose amount of radiation from the solar flares from the sun, from the Mars, from the galactic cosmic rays, and also from the outer belt galaxies. So currently, we have what we call the annual terrestrial radiation dose, which is around 2.4 millisieverts, whereas outside the magnetosphere of the Earth, the exposure on the lunar surface is around roughly 380 millisieverts. So this is solar minimum during solar minimum, which is when the moon is facing the sun. And 110, so this is opposite. 380 at solar maximum, 110 at solar minimum. So either where you're facing the sun or not. So fortunately for us on Earth, the majority of the cosmic radiation is repelled by our protective bubble called the magnetosphere, and this prevents any harmful effects of the radiation from reaching humans. But however, we need to know that cosmic radiation on the moon has a high content of galactic cosmic rays and also solar particles, and also low light energy transmissions like gamma rays and X-rays. And this actually increases the reactive oxygen species in our body, which is what initiates the cellular cancerous cells to replicate. So this increases the blood-brain barrier permeability, activates the microglia and astrocytes, and also stimulates the mitochondrial dysfunction. Overall, this will increase neuroinflammation and lead to cognitive decline. And we also have to consider the gravitational pull differences between Earth, the Moon, and also the Mars. The gravitational pull on Earth is about 1 g, whereas on Mars is 0.38 g, and on the Moon is 0.16 g. So this is what we consider as hypogravity. So far, we don't have any data on how humans fare on the Moon for a long period of time. And we only have a lot of data on the International Space Station, which is what we call low orbit Earth gravitational pull, and that is around 0.01 g and considered microgravity. So some of the effects of hypogravity on humans that we do know of is the without gravity the body fluids tends to pull near the chest and the heart, and this makes the muscles move the fluids up, which causes tissue damage like endothelial dysfunction, fibrosis, and atherosclerosis. So all this leads to what we call a puffy face with thorax decompression and a bird legs-like feature where the muscle atrophy of the legs are actually reduced. So because of this, we need to reduce our fluid intake and also lead to a reduced in diuresis. And then all this will lead to an increase in the interstitial volume, but the red cell mass and the blood volume will ultimately reduce. So overall, the effects of hypogravity on the muscles ultimately is what causes by a lot of stress from isolation, nutrition deficiencies, the weightlessness, the radiation, and all this and hypogravity environment will lead to disuse and unloading of the muscle tissues, mitochondrial dysfunction, systemic hormonal and humoral imbalance, which ultimately leads to muscle dysfunctioning and requires remodeling. So these are all the multifactorial effects on the muscle, especially what causes muscle atrophy, like a dysfunction in the disuse and the unloading, lack of nutrition, immune system, hormonal imbalance, lack of vitamin D's, direct effects like cortisol and growth hormones, which leads to muscle atrophy, and also the radiation effects leading to antioxidants being reduced. So the effects of hypogravity on the heart actually reduces the mean heart rate at rest. So we did a lot of studies have done a lot of simulation effects on the effect of hypogravity on the human's heart, particularly comparing Earth and Mars, because ultimately we want to go to Mars and initiate a permanent habitation there. So we saw that there will be a 10 to 15% reduction in the heart rate from 118 beats per minute to about 106 when our body is exposed to a hypogravity effect. So the lower body positive pressure treadmill was used to simulate the 0.38 g. So we put the participant into a pressurized chamber of a treadmill where there is a lifting force to actually simulate hypogravity for the human. So during physical activity, the peak heart rate beats is around 160 beats per minute. So you can actually see a significant reduction in the mean heart rate when humans are exposed to hypogravity. So you also have the effects of swollen optic disc because of the hypothetical blood pressure, because all the body's fluids has lots of gravitational pull and is redistributed towards the head and the upper chest, and this leads to a spaceflight associated neuroocular syndrome where the optic disc is swollen and therefore you have a marked blurring of vision and or blindness. You also have an increase in hyperreflexia because of the increase in resting membrane potential at hypogravity, which leads to faster AP generation, therefore hyperreflexia occurs. And lastly, you also have things like agitation, increased bowel sounds, like increased bowel output, such as diarrhea. You also have the increased hyperreflexia and clonus with autonomic instability, and also a little bit of mydriasis and diaphoresis. Tachycardia is mainly because of the anxiety under isolation environment. So the effects of isolation on humans is basically the most that a human has been into space, which is low orbit, not on the moon or the Mars, is 437 days. And this is done by the Russian cosmonaut on the Soyuz TM-18 between 1994 to 1995. He's a medical doctor, and his documented experiences reported severe anxiety, depression, insomnia, low mood, aggravation, and social withdrawal. There's also team conflicts, personal frustrations, and maladaptive behavior reported in his logbook. So these are the isolation effects that we should know. So to counter this, we want to optimize human habitat on the moon. So the key facilities that I am covering is the recreational facilities. And the recreational facilities is involving physical activities, and we want to optimize our exercise routine. What we do know now is the recommended physical exercise on the earth is around 75 to 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity exercise 2 to 3 days per week, with 2 to 3 sets of strength training and flexibility joint motions. However, we do not have any evidence for the moon or the Mars yet. We only have evidence on the microgravity effects aboard the International Space Station, which is low orbit, and the recommended exercise routine is around slightly higher, 120 to 150 minutes of vigorous intensity exercise almost every day, which is 6 to 7 days per week, with 3 to 6 sets of 12 repetitions of upper body strength training. And also because of the microgravity, they also encourage head down tilt bed rest, which is you turn your body upside down so that the body's fluid is redistributed to your legs instead of being accumulated on your chest and thorax. There's also no evidence on flexibility joint motions as of yet. So based on these two evidences, we suspect that the exercise routine on the moon sits in between this, because the moon's gravity sits between the Earth's 1G gravity and the microgravity aboard the ISS. So the sports gym, the current design that is recommended on Earth is the space volume is around 2.5 times 2 times 1.5, with an equipment dimension recommendation 45 meters, 15 times 35. So this is the equivalent of a treadmill. But our design implementation of the rocket specs, the space volume that they can accommodate is only 5 meters squared. And then the equipment dimension is very small, 35 by 50 centimeters width, 35 height, and 19 height. This is length. So the maximum weight of an equipment for exercise can only be around 10.6 kilograms. So this is actually a picture of what the concept art of a virtual reality cube is. So what we can do is that we can create the space volume of a VR cube based on the dimensions that the rocket can actually provide for us, and then increase the variation of sports or utilities that they can use for space and moon habitation. So what we can do during exercise training to stimulate the hypergravity effects on the of moon on the Earth is to provide a body lifted suspension to reduce gravity on bones and muscles, so that however the bodily fluid remains unaffected. So this is just the body weight supported treadmill training, where we can simulate a harness, and then the participant can actually walk on a treadmill being half supported by the harness to simulate a 0.16 hypergravity effect on Earth. So the VR cube concept is actually an exercise facility that is multivariant. This is the concept design of an astronaut playing a beach volleyball in a VR cube while being suspended on air because of microgravity. And then you can actually use this VR cube to play other forms of sports where the space volume is limited, and we can increase the variation to improve the engagement and also the exercise routines that astronauts can use aboard the moon habitation or the space flights. So this is my first paper related to space physiology. So I published a paper on virtual reality exergaming for future moon-based habitation, which is a scoping review. So the thing is that about space, that God doesn't play dice with the universe. We really have to calculate everything before proceeding with building an exercise facility for space. And there's also considerations that we have to think, like ethical considerations. What happens to the machines that we build? Does it pose any cosmic dangers? What about the space junk? How do we propose to increase the sustainability of the materials that we use? Should we use things in situ on the moon? And then feasibility, can we truly achieve 0.16 G on Earth within a considerable amount of funding? And then there's also the unknown unknowns, like are we meant to conquer space with the amount of water scarcity and solar imbalance that we know of the space? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Maziah. Any questions from the participants, from the audience? So it's a very interesting talk on how to exercise in outer space. So can you explain about the effects of microgravity on cardiac output and respiratory parameters, perhaps? Is there
Okay.
anything studied on that?
I didn't really study on the respiratory part, but cardiac output by right, it should, from what the case studies have presented, the cardiac output will slightly increase because of the stroke volume increases, even though the heart rate reduces because of the increase in the interstitial volume. This particular slide.
The
So
shift of the fluid, as you mentioned, the shift
yeah.
of the fluid, as you mentioned, to the upper part of the body, will that have any effects on cardiac output?
Yes. So the cardiac output will slightly increase. However, because of the balancing of the heart rate, the basal heart rate at rest will reduce slightly, but significantly. So cardiac output will increase a bit because the interstitial volume of the thorax will increase. Respiratory rate, I am not sure. I have not studied on the respiratory effects of hypogravity. So far, only on the effects of exercise on the heart rate and also the interstitial volume and the red cell mass volume and also the muscles. But I will look into that. Yeah, I forgot about looking into what are the effects of cardiac output and respiratory rate on the effects of hypergravity in the human's body. Yep.
Any other questions from the audience? If not, you can write on the chat box. I can read it, and Dr. Maziah can try to answer any questions from you.
Oh, Yu Quen Chan has a question, Prof.
Okay.
You see, we have not heard from you regarding oxygenation or availability of oxygen to sustain life in outer space. So for oxygenation, what they're trying to do is the process of hydrolysis, where you break down H2O, water, to form oxygen and hydrogen molecules. So there is a machine, but the current prototype is very small. It is not able to maintain more than 1%, from what I read, from more than 1% or more for more than 20 hours. It's a very small prototype product that they made that can lies down the water into oxygen and hydrogen molecules. So that's how they oxygenate humans to sustain life in outer space. That's one. The other one is the common greening of the habitation. That means they plant plants or trees or small shrubs in space. But the problem with that is once they are not exposed to UV light from the solar system, from the solar sun, then it goes back to producing carbon dioxide. So it's not as efficient to produce oxygen as the hydrolysis system. Yep. So they are still working on it. I think we are not ready yet to conquer moon based on the available evidence.
Okay, it's interesting.
Yep.
Any other questions from the audience? So any other things that you would like to say? We have time bit
Yeah, because I
of
think I moved too. Yeah, I moved too fast. So the thing about the moon habitation is we want to create a moon habitation as a hub from transporting humans, and also ultimately what the three main companies that are really after space exploration is SpaceX, Blue Horizon, and I forgot the third one, but it's from Australia. Ultimately, what they are trying to go after are all the rare materials in either the asteroid belt between Jupiter and Mars. So that's why they really want to create a moon habitation on the moon. That one is mainly to refuel our rockets after we leave the gravitational pull of the Earth. Then we refuel on moon, and then they go to Mars, and then from Mars they go to the asteroid belt, because the asteroid belt has a lot of rare materials that they can actually mine for Earth's consumption. Yeah, so that is actually the main end goal for the private space industries. They really want the rare earth materials there. Yeah. So that is the end goal. But I don't think so we are ready yet to propose such an ambitious project in the long term. I'm not sure whether even in this decade we can achieve it. So we're still far behind. Yeah.
Okay. Okay then. Thank you very much, Dr. Maziah,
All right.
for a nice talk. Very interesting talk on space exploration and how human body adapt to it. Okay. Without any further delay, I will pass this to the next session.